Hey everyone, you know that feeling when you're standing in the pet food aisle, just staring at a wall of bags and cans, and you feel completely lost? Well, if that's you, then you are in the right place. We're going to cut through all that marketing fluff and figure out what your cat actually needs to eat. And we're going to do it by looking at the one thing that never lies, their biology. So let me just kick things off with a question. What if the single most critical thing for your cat's health isn't protein or vitamins or any of that fancy stuff, but something way, way simpler? We're talking about water. And as you're about to see, the way cats are designed to get that water is the key to pretty much everything. All right, first things first, we have to understand this one core concept. Your cat is an obligate carnivore. Now, this isn't some kind of dietary preference or a lifestyle choice. It is literally hardwired into their DNA, a blueprint they got from their ancestor, the North African wildcat. Their bodies are built from the ground up to run on meat, period. And here's the cool part. We can basically boil down millions of years of evolution into just two super simple, non-negotiable rules for feeding them. If you can get these two things right, believe me, you are 90% of the way to giving your cat the perfect diet. Okay, rule number one is all about high animal protein. See, unlike you or me or even a dog, a cat's liver is kind of stuck in the on mode. It's just constantly breaking down amino acids for energy, and it can't really slow down. This means they need a constant high-protein pipeline just to keep their bodies running smoothly. And this right here, this is exactly why that protein has to come from animals. They need things like taurine for their heart and their eyesight. They need vitamin A that's already formed because, unlike us, they can't make it from a carrot. And get this, arginine is so vital for them that a single meal without it can actually be fatal. That's why just feeding them table scraps is never going to cut it. And that brings us to rule number two, which takes us right back to where we started. You have to remember, cats are desert animals. Their ancestors evolved where water was scarce. So what did they do? They developed a super low thirst drive. They're literally built to get the vast majority of their water. We're talking like 75% of it straight from their food. From the mouse or bird they just caught. Okay, so let's keep those two rules in our back pocket. High animal protein and critical moisture. Now, let's take a walk down that pet food aisle and see how the stuff you actually find on the shelf stacks up. Wow, yeah, the numbers here really speak for themselves. Wet food, the stuff in cans or pouches, is sitting at around 75 to 80% moisture. That's almost a perfect match for a cat's natural prey. And dry kibble? It's way down at a measly 6 to 10%. On top of that, wet food usually has more of the good stuff, protein, and less of what they don't need, which is carbs. I love this analogy. It just makes so much sense. Think about it. What if you had to live on nothing but dry crackers all day, every day? You'd be incredibly thirsty, right? But a cat's different. They have that low thirst drive we talked about, so they just don't get the same signal to go drink enough water to make up for that bone-dry food. And you know what? The science absolutely backs this up. Study after study shows that cats eating wet food get way more total water in their system than cats eating dry food. Even if you give the kibble eaters a giant sparkling bowl of fresh water right next to their food, they just don't make up the difference. And this is the number I really want you to remember, 50%. That's right, a cat on a kibble-only diet is taking in about half the total amount of water as a cat on a wet food diet. And that's not a small thing. We're talking about a state of constant, low-grade dehydration day in and day out. So what does that chronic dehydration actually do? Well, the consequences are pretty serious. It makes their urine super concentrated, which is the perfect breeding grounds for painful bladder crystals and stones. It's a huge contributor to urinary tract diseases, and over a lifetime, it just puts this relentless, heavy strain on their kidneys. Okay, now that we've got that biological blueprint down, let's have some fun and use it to bust a few of the biggest cat food myths out there. Ah, this one, the big one. The myth that absolutely refuses to die. You've all heard it, right? Oh, you have to feed crunchy kibble because it cleans your cat's teeth. Well, the truth is, for most kibble, that's just not how it works. It's so brittle that it just kind of shatters into dust the second a tooth hits it. So you get zero scraping action where it actually matters, down at the gum line, where all the nasty plaque builds up. Only a few very special prescription diets are actually designed to do that. All right, myth number two. This one is straight out of every cartoon you've ever seen. The adorable cat happily lapping up a saucer of milk.
It looks so wholesome, doesn't it?
Yeah, it turns out this is a huge biological no-no. See, once kittens grow up and stop nursing, their bodies pretty much shut down production of lactase, the enzyme they need to digest milk sugar. So, yep, most adult cats are actually lactose intolerant. That bowl of milk is more likely to give them an upset stomach than anything else. Okay, on to a more modern myth. You see grain-free plastered everywhere on pet food bags, and it sounds so healthy, right? But is it automatically better? Well, not so fast. The problem is, to get rid of the greens, a lot of these foods are packed with things like peas and lentils instead. And there's some concern, and it's still being researched, that these ingredients might mess with how cats absorb taurine, that super important nutrient for heart health we talked about earlier. So the takeaway here is that grain-free isn't a magic ticket to a perfect diet. All right, we've gone through the biology, we've compared the food, we've busted some myths, so now what? What do you actually do with all this? Let's put it all together into a super simple, practical plan.
Look, this doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. Let's break it down into good, better, and best. Good is just starting to introduce any complete wet food. Seriously, you've immediately given their hydration a huge boost. Better is making that wet food the main event, the bulk of what they eat every day. And best? That's when you're choosing wet foods that are high in animal protein and low in carbs, really getting as close as you can to that ancestral diet.
So let's just nail down the key takeaways here. Number 1, hydration isn't optional, it's mandatory, and that means wet food has to be the priority. Number 2, high animal protein from meat is an absolute must. They can't get what they need from scraps. And look, if you walk away with just one thing today, please let it be this. The worst, cheapest, complete wet food on the shelf is still miles better for your cat's hydration than the fanciest, most expensive gourmet dry food. Period. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Feeding your cat isn't about chasing marketing trends. It's about respecting their biology, millions of years of it. When you feed them based on that blueprint, you're not just giving them a meal. You're giving them a powerful tool for preventative health, potentially saving them and you from a world of trouble down the line.